So Keith Thurman shows Shawn Porter and Amir Khan how it's done in stopping Julio Diaz. Diaz quit on his stool after the third round, citing a rib injury. But it was a pretty strange stoppage because you would have expected Diaz to show some signs of distress during the third round after he got hit with his body shot that supposedly cracked his rib. I mean, there's definitely the possibility there could be a delayed reaction. Sometimes when you're in the heat of the moment, you don't really feel things until a few seconds later. Sometimes you don't even feel certain things until the next day. But it is what it is. Diaz claims that he obviously was in pain to quit on the stool. So, I don't know, strange one. And it happened just as the fight was heating up. Diaz went down, I believe it was in the second round, from a counter left hook from Keith Thurman. And Thurman was really outboxing him. That's the interesting thing. Thurman is known as this puncher. And yes, he has shown improved boxing skills over the past few years. But Julio Diaz, according to Shawn Porter, is the toughest opponent he's ever faced, amateur and pro. This is what Shawn Porter has said in an interview. He said Julio Diaz was the toughest guy he's faced, amateur and pro, and that he's so smart. He couldn't believe how smart Julio Diaz was. And I'm pretty sure Amir Khan would say something similar, that Julio Diaz is a very smart, tricky fighter. But very early on in the fight against Keith Thurman, Thurman was already several steps ahead of him. He was landing clean counters on Julio Diaz all the time. He was basically drawing Diaz forward. Diaz was coming forward and Thurman was catching him with counters all over the place. And he was really looking like he was picking Diaz apart. But in the third round, I thought Diaz started having a better round then. He was coming forward, putting Keith Thurman under more and more pressure. And he was actually taking Thurman's punches very, very well, which was quite surprising because Julio Diaz has been stopped a number of times in his career. But yet again, aside from the knockdown, which was a decent shot that he took, but it's kind of a delayed reaction, but he wasn't that badly hurt in the second round, I believe. Apart from that, he took Thurman's punches very, very well. He was getting hit with a lot of them as well. Thurman, admittedly, was on his back foot for the most part, so maybe the shots didn't really have that kind of power in them to take him out. If he was coming forward and landing the shots, they might have had more of an effect, but who knows? But this is yet another example of Julio Diaz being able to take punches at a higher weight that he wasn't able to take at a lower weight. You know, because he took Amir Khan's shots, he took Shawn Porter's shots in 2 fights with Shawn Porter. And most people who saw the first Shawn Porter fight felt that Julio Diaz won that fight. Then in the rematch, it went the distance again. Yet Keith Thurman's able to come out and start landing counter shots pretty much at will. He did way better against Julio Diaz than Shawn Porter did, or certainly Amir Khan. So, impressive, pretty impressive from Keith Thurman. Again, Julio Diaz is not a marquee name. He's not someone that Keith Thurman's going to get any real credit for beating. He's, I guess, supposed to beat Julio Diaz, and he's supposed to be convincing by, you know, beating him. But it has to be said that a lot of people, there's a couple of people in my Facebook group who are convinced that Shawn Porter is years ahead of Keith Thurman. And they're convinced that Shawn Porter would knock Keith Thurman out. Well, I'd like to know what they think after this performance. Because, as I've said, Shawn Porter rates Julio Diaz very highly. Also, Shawn Porter has sparred Keith Thurman. A lot of people don't know that. He sparred him quite a few times. Okay, well, for quite a lot of rounds anyway. And he has nothing but praise for Keith Thurman. So, if Shawn Porter is really this far ahead of Keith Thurman, I mean, Shawn Porter don't think so himself. He has a lot of praise for Keith Thurman. Me personally, I think Keith Thurman versus Shawn Porter is an excellent fight. I think that's a 50-50 fight. Very, very good fight. Styles make fights. Yes, Keith Thurman dealt with Julio Diaz better than Shawn Porter did. Much better. But styles make fights, and Shawn Porter's style is very different to Julio Diaz. He's got different attributes, stronger, bigger, etc. So we'll have to see if that fight can be made, assuming Shawn Porter gets past Kell Brook, which I think he probably will. I expect him to actually beat Brook and possibly stop him. Not that Kell Brook doesn't have a chance in the fight, he does, but I just worry about Kell Brook's mentality fighting overseas in America. I don't think he'll be able to hold it together. I just get the feeling that Kell Brook is one of them kind of guys who needs to be in his comfort zone to perform. and he'll be in America out of his comfort zone. And I'm not confident that he can perform to the best of his ability out there. I could be wrong, but in terms of Kell Brook's physical attributes and his you know, boxing ability and whatnot, he's definitely got a chance against Shawn Porter. There's no doubt about that. But I just wonder about his mental state. So anyway, Keith Thurman marches on. Who's going to fight him next? He's obviously going to have another fight in between now and a possible showdown with Shawn Porter. So who should he fight now? Who should he fight? Who's going to be willing to fight him? You tell me in the comment section below. Let me know how you feel. This is Hatman. I'm out.